Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. We're your hosts, Calvin Timms and Dale Terry. Hit us up on Twitter at TDC_Calvin and at Dynasty_Dale. And welcome back to another recap, off-season recap. And man, we're over halfway and I'm starting to feel it, Dale. I'm starting to feel it. We've only got 3 divisions left after today, but right now we're going through the last of the NFC North, the Minnesota Vikings. If this is your first time, thank you for checking us out. We appreciate it. We're going to be going through all the offseason major names and changes here and talking about the team as a whole. We'll go through any coaching staff changes, any major player changes, the draft, and then giving our thoughts on all the players at the end of the podcast. If you guys have stuck it out for whatever it is, 20 teams now, we definitely appreciate you guys. You guys know the drill anyway, so, that said, leave a like, comment, subscription, all that fun jazz down below, and just helps us with the algorithm. How are we doing today, Dale?
Hey, I'm doing great. I will say that I'm not exhausted yet, so bring it on, man. I'm excited to talk about football. Like we are. It is. I mean, on the day we are recording, it's about two weeks roughly until the Hall of Fame game. So I can't wait.
Yep, it's about 6 weeks from today, actually. Yeah, 6 weeks from today. Yeah. So it's getting pretty close. It's getting pretty close. Enough. Yep. Ironically, today, when we were recording this, is actually the day that the news broke about Jordan Addison. If you haven't heard, he was pulled over. This is first round wide receiver, and we'll talk about him a little bit more later, but he was cited for driving 140 in a 35, I think it was. So
in a 55.
55. Oh, it's so much better. But it's just it's not good. We'll see if there's anything that it comes from the league for this, but as of now, there's no news, so nothing to report there. But yeah, the Minnesota Vikings, man, they were a decent team last year, to say the least. What were they? 13-4. I heard that they won 11 games by 1 score, and they had a negative points differential, which is pretty funny. Because the games that they lost, the 4 games that they lost, I do remember this. They got absolutely blown out. I remember they played the one of those games was the Cowboys, and I think they lost like 40-3 or something like that. It was just nuts.
It was a bloodbath. It was a primetime game even. Yeah, and people were falling asleep and not having a good time.
And then ironically, they go and they beat the Buffalo Bills in one of the best. Probably it was ironic because I was watching that game, right, and Justin Jefferson makes that insane catch, and I tell my wife, I say that might have been the best catch that I've ever seen, like literally, and it was spectacular. So Minnesota Vikings are a little bit more challenging, I guess to say, in terms of 2023. We've been going through the NFC North here, and the Detroit Lions are the favorites to win the division, and I don't really know how to rank Minnesota. I want to like Minnesota. I like Kirk Cousins. I like this team, Justin Jefferson. No major coaching staff changes on the offensive or head coaching side of the ball. They did swap out Brian Flores. He's back to being a defensive coordinator, former Miami head coach Brian Flores. So I think he actually runs a pretty good defense, and I think he'll be able to help with schematic on that side of the ball. But the problem is they are massively hurting on the defensive side of the ball. They have traded guys, they've cut a lot of guys, and they are in the middle of a rebuild on that side of the ball. And I think they're a couple years away still, probably, from being a solid top tier, like even middle of the pack tier defense. I think right now they're bottom 10 pretty comfortably. How do you feel about this defense?
Yeah, I would say their defense is pretty garbage. They lost a lot of their quote unquote playmakers that were actually pretty solid for them last year. And it's going to be very interesting. And as you can tell by their draft, they kind of went a little bit on they kind of went offense and defense. It's interesting with their draft strategy. So,
right.
And that's more what we're going to talk about. But yeah, I mean, I think the Vikings are fun, but it's either going to be a dumpster fire or they're going to be mediocre. So
yeah, right. For fantasy, I think they're going to be really good because I think this defense is going to be bad and they're going to have to really try and keep up. And this is a pass-heavy offense anyway, so I think that there's going to be a lot of benefits there. But just, you mentioned a few of their studs that they lost on the defensive side of the ball. Here's some of those names, right? Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle, Dalvin Tomlinson. Linebacker, Zadarius Smith. They lost Patrick Peterson. He's a little bit older, but he's still a decent cornerback. Yeah. Cornerback Duke Shelley. Cornerback Cam Dantzler. Eric Kendricks, linebacker in the middle of the pack. Like, it was not good. And I think they even traded somebody, if I remember correctly. I just don't remember who it was off the top of my head.
They traded. I know who.
You try and look it up, and I'll see. We'll just keep going here. But I don't think the names that they brought in are enough to compensate, really, to be honest with you. When you're bringing in Troy Reeder, he's a decent linebacker, but I think Eric Kendricks and Zadarius Smith are just better players. They brought in Dean Lowry from the Packers, division rivals here, to replace Dalvin Tomlinson. So, again, that's kind of a downgrade. They did bring in Marcus Davenport. I think he was a former first-round pick from the Saints. Again, he's not an elite player, but he's okay. Cornerbacks Jojuan, I forgot how to say this guy's name. Williams from My Patriots, and Byron Murphy. I did like the Byron Murphy addition that they did this offseason. Absolutely. I think that he has a lot of potential talent. At cornerback, I think he's kind of on the up. So that's probably the best signing. They brought in Brandon Powell, the wide receiver, lost Adam Thielen. So all in all, I would say that for the most part, this offseason was a loss for the team. I think that they lost more than they gained, unfortunately. Not to say that they're going to be terrible. Again, I think the offensive side of the ball is good enough, and most of these changes do not impact the offensive side of the ball at all. And I know that they lost Dalvin Cook, but Dalvin Cook's getting older. He's not the prime Dalvin Cook anymore. Irv Smith was never really anything with this team. Adam Thielen, again, he's not prime Adam Thielen. So they're just trying to move on from those guys, and I think that they're happy with who they have behind them and the depth that they have at those positions. But yeah, this defense just took a massive hit. Definitely a big hit.
Yeah. And then another it was the player they traded was Zadarius Smith to the Browns.
Oh, okay.
Is who it was. And
that's
then
what I was thinking, but yeah. Go ahead.
And then they did make another trade. Like, they added a defensive end, Ross Blacklock, who was a former second round pick of the Texans a few years ago.
Okay.
So they added him like during the draft. So
gotcha.
So I think they're making they're trying to help some of their cap issues that they've been struggling.
Right. So yeah, I know they have a newer GM. They just got him last year, Kwesi Adafo-Mensah. I think that's how you say it. He's more of an analytical type of guy, so trying to get the salary cap in order is probably going to be his number one concern for right now, and then figuring it out from there. So, yeah, I think that they're going to be good. They're not going to be elite on the defensive side of the ball, and I think they're going to be probably, again, I think it's good for fantasy. What we care about is because it's going to give more opportunities there. So, any last thoughts on the free agents? I thought it was a little bit of a downgrade all in all, but nothing major, not a glaring change, right?
Yeah. I mean, there are some stable or some common names that we see that they lost, but I mean, both these guys are getting older. Right. They have these bigger cap numbers, and that's just not what they're interested in right now.
Right. Yep. I'm with you. So then the draft, again, they tried to hit up a lot of the defense early with the more premium picks, I guess. But they got Jordan Addison, wide receiver, in the first round to replace Adam Thielen. You like that. Everybody was very high on Jordan Addison going into the draft, and this helped a lot. For a minute there, I was considering him as my number one wide receiver. Ultimately, I did not. He's still my number 3, but it's very close, right? It's not because of anything to do with him, but it's just the way that Minnesota fans talk about Kirk Cousins, they hate their quarterback, and I've never understood it because
like no other.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It is crazy.
It's because Kirk Cousins is
good but not great.
Yeah. He's pretty mid. So
he's great but not elite. I'll even say it that way. Because he's always had over 4,000 yards, except with the former coach. I forget his name off the top of my head. I can see his face, but
Zimmer.
Yeah, Mike Zimmer. The Mike Zimmer offense, it was run, and then Kirk bail us out. So he didn't have over 4,000 in those years, but like he's a 4,000-yard passer. He's a good passer. It's just, he's not Patrick Mahomes, and that's okay. You saw that in quarterbacks. He's not Patrick Mahomes, right? So,
absolutely.
Jordan Addison, you love to see that in the first round, though. A premium player going to a premium position, right? And a definite need for a team. So, you've got guys like Quentin Johnson, who we really like, but he's going to be the number 3. Oh, there we go. My microphone cord's messing up. So, but Quentin Johnson, he's going to be the number 3 for the Los Angeles Chargers right now. So, he's got a little bit more of a difficult path to getting to relevance, right? Where Jordan Addison is the number 2. He's going to be the number 2 day 1. No second round pick because they went and got TJ Hockenson last year.
Yeah.
Mickey Blackman, cornerback out of USC in round 3. Jay Ward, safety out of LSU. And then back-to-back LSU picks here. Jay Quillen Roy, defensive tackle out of LSU in round 5. They also got Jaron Hall, quarterback out of BYU in round 5. And then no 6-rounder. And in round 7, Dwayne McBride, running back that a lot of people are kind of excited about in this backfield. We'll touch on the running backs here in just a minute. But all in all, for an analytics driven team, I was a little surprised by how few picks that they actually had in this draft. You know what I mean? For a team that, for an organization that feels like they're going to want as many picks as possible to get as many lottery tickets as possible, they just really did not prioritize that very much.
I think part of it was they lost a couple picks in the Hockenson trade. Like they traded I think a second and ended up being a second and a third,
right,
to the Lions. It's to the Lions. So you have to keep that in mind. And then they also got and then they also got Ross Blacklock. Like they were trying to fill a hole.
Sure.
And then another draft pick they lost was Jalen Reagor. It was just a 7th rounder.
Oh yeah,
so
that's right.
So like they are taking stabs, but they're taking stabs at cheaper veterans.
Sure. So we'll see if it works. Again, these guys were the leader of the NFC North last year, so it's entirely possible that they can get back there. It's not impossible. I just would not be betting on it, I guess. When you're 11-0 in 1-score games, that always scares me just a little bit. Definitely. And that's not to say that the team can't be a little bit better this year. Second year with a new head coach, it's entirely possible that their head coach leads them to better victories, right? Not 1-score games, but Kevin O'Connell, maybe they win by 10, 12, whatever. They can enforce their will a little bit more on some of these other teams. That's what you're hoping to see early on if you're a Minnesota fan, right?
Yeah, and and I think they're still going to do okay. Like they still have a Kevin O'Connell, which I think he's also very analytic driven.
Sure.
It's coming over from came over from the Rams, so like he studied under Sean McVay, so like he kind of
he's that West Coast style.
Yeah, and he's gonna scheme them just fine. So I'm not worried about their offense. It's the defense is what scares me.
Yep, I'm with you 100%. So speaking of the offensive line, they were pretty good last year. Not top tier, but not bad by any means. I think that they were solid enough for this team, and I don't think that anything really changed. So there, you like to see that, and you got some young guys on there as well that should be getting a little bit better with time. You got Christian Darrisaw, Garrett Bradbury, a couple of these guys that you want to see them just develop a little bit more, and I think that they're going to be better this upcoming season. That said, with the West Coast scheme, they like to keep Kirk Cousins a little bit safer. He's not the most mobile type of guy, but yeah, I think that Kirk has played with way worse offensive lines and been just fine. So I'm not worried about this offensive line at all. Are you?
I'm not. I think they're pretty solid. Again, like they just have to stay healthy, and I think they're a pretty like mid to upper offensive line, honestly,
Sure.
So I'm not that's the least of their concern.
And I really quickly want to correct myself on Kirk Cousins. So he was actually a 4,000-yard passer with Mike Zimmer. Just 1 year under Mike Zimmer, he was not. And he's only had 1 year since he became a starter in 2015 where he has not had 4,000 yards. Isn't that crazy? Yep. I just don't understand how Vikings fans don't like this guy. It is just nuts to me.
It's because they spent a lot of money and he hasn't.
Okay.
He's produced, but he hasn't gotten them over the hump, and that's where they wanted to go.
Yeah, I'm sure Case Keenum would have gotten you guys there. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, in spending all that money, all of that guaranteed money,
right,
is a thing that they tried to do, and they tried to set the market, and
it just didn't work, right?
Yeah, it hasn't really worked for him.
Right. Yeah. So, I think this offensive line will be a little bit better. Kirk Cousins, I still like Kirk Cousins a lot. I actually think that they're going to re-sign him. He was the quarterback number 6 last year. Again, he had 4,500 yards, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He's always kind of been right in that range, 14. That's the highest he's ever actually had in a season. So if I'm betting on it, I'm betting he's going to be closer to 10 this upcoming season. I could see him breaking 30 touchdowns as well. Again, second year with a new system that is catered to his strengths, right? And then you upgrade Adam Thielen, the corpse of Adam Thielen, with Jordan Addison, and I think this offense is going to be a lot more explosive. I would not be shocked. This is going to be probably considered a hot take, but I could see Kirk Cousins throwing for 5,000 yards this year. It's only a couple hundred extra, but I don't think Adam Thielen was as good as he's been for many, many years, and I think Jordan Addison has that top-end speed. You got TJ Hockenson. I just think that there's a lot of potential that an extra 400 yards, it can come pretty quick, So
it could, but it's with the 17-game season, it's possible,
right?
I mean, Kirk came close sure. in 2016. He was less than 100 yards off, but
right.
Ever since he's been a Viking, it's the closest he got was last year, and I don't, and then with that, he threw for the most attempts he's ever had. So
I don't see it changing though without Dalvin Cook.
I still think they're gonna scheme to run the ball. I'm not
right. But it's gonna be a pass first team, right?
Yeah. It's definitely gonna be pass first, but I still think they're going to. I can see it being a 65-35. Kind
that's
of
probably about right.
And I think that's about where he is. His. Well, and for last year, he almost had a career high in completions. He was one off his career high. So I don't think he's gonna have any more than that. And I really think the yardage is probably gonna stay about the same. But still, that's what quarterback 6. It was last year.
That's what's crazy. So, I think he's gonna be a little bit better this year. And a little bit better puts him at quarterback 5. If this is about the worst you're gonna get with him in this system, that's pretty good. That's pretty valuable. And that's one thing with Kirk Cousins. He's always been undervalued and underrated for Dynasty. He's only 34 years old. I think he's never had a season where he hasn't played except for the final week, where they pull the starters before playoffs, right? He's never really missed time for injury purposes. So he's someone that keeps himself in really good shape, and he He's 34 years old, and never having a major injury as a quarterback is extremely rare, right? Even Tom Brady missed time, and he was out there all the time. Matt Stafford was Iron Man, and he still gets banged up. But Kirk Cousins has just always been able to do that. So I think that Kirk Cousins is going to be able to play easily until he wants to walk away, which I think is going to be around probably 37, 38, somewhere in that range. If he can't get it done, he'll probably just throw in the towel. So I think you're going to have Kirk Cousins for 3 to 4 more years. He'll probably re-sign with the Minnesota Vikings this upcoming offseason, and it's going to be his final contract in the NFL as a starter, right? Or as the known starter where he's not competing with a rookie or something like that, right? So I think that you're going to have Kirk Cousins for 3 to 4 more years, and if you're going to be able to pretty much rely on him for low-end quarterback one numbers in Superflex for 3 years, that is so valuable that it's just crazy to me that he's so underrated in my mind. And again, we try to play in 3-year windows. Go get Kirk Cousins and just when he's done, walk away, and you get a new guy then in 2026. Who cares, right? Just go spend a late first for Kirk Cousins and just roll with him for a few years, right? You might even be able to get him for like 2 seconds. I don't even know, because even the fantasy community hates Kirk Cousins. I just don't get it.
Right. No, and I understand that. And like it's because he's just so mid is the problem. So
he's mid, but he performs for fantasy, so what do we care, man? I just don't get it.
He's just your average Joe, and
he's just boring. That's the problem. He's boring.
He's extremely boring. He is the definition of of the white guy on the team. So yeah. He is, unfortunately. So
all right, so let's go to the running backs here. Of course, they got rid of Dalvin Cook this last offseason. Alexander Mattison. They've got Kene Nagwanu behind him and Dwayne McBride. They still have C.J. Ham and Ty Chandler. C.J. Ham's more of a fullback for this team anyway, so he's not going to get a ton of usage. Alexander Mattison, they re-signed him. They told him he was going to be the guy. I believe that he can be the guy. There's a lot of people out there that are very high on Alexander Mattison, that he's going to be, top 12, top 10. What do we think that his ceiling really is without Dalvin Cook?
Well, if we look in the history of Dalvin Cook, like he was a top end running back. So, let's see, what did Dalvin do? He was running back 11 last year,
right?
16 the year before, and then 2 and 6, respectively. So, excuse me. So with that, we can see a potentially like a low end RB1. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be more of a
RB2
running back by. Yes. Well, I think it's going to be more running back by committee there.
I see.
Personally. I think Dwayne McBride might have some value. I honestly think they're gonna sign a vet, like maybe a Kareem Hunt. They might sign
that. Actually be a good fit, I think.
Yes. So I can see them adding a late running back, because this running back room
sucks.
Looks pretty. Yeah, it's scary, and I don't like. I'm not like, I like Mattison. Like, don't get me wrong, but there's people that are hyping him up to be the next thing, and he's 25, like he's almost to that running back ceiling anyways, and he's never really broke out.
He's never got the workload that you like to see from these guys. The most touches he's had in a year is about 170, which that's not great. That's not what you want to see from a starting running back. He's got decent hands. We've seen that before in 2021, 39 targets, 32 catches. But yeah, he's never broken 135 carries in a season. So that's a little scary. I don't think he has the same efficiency that Dalvin Cook does. I don't think he's the same touchdown threat as Dalvin Cook is. Ironically would be the best fit for this team would be Leonard Fournette, and it's because
that's what I was kind of thinking too.
Because of the pass catching, I think he's more reliable than Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt has never been the best pass blocker, and that's where Leonard Fournette would be a little bit better. Now, don't get me wrong, Kareem Hunt I think would be more explosive after he got the ball in his hands, but he's just a little bit more of a liability than Leonard Fournette. So we'll see if the Patriots ultimately sign Fournette or not, but Yeah, well, I agree with you. I think they're going to bring somebody in here. So, Mattison value, are we still thinking, would you be willing to give a first for him? I'm not. I'm
not.
Okay.
I'm not. I mean, like I would rather have Charbonnet. I'd rather have Kendry Miller.
I probably would rather have Devin Achane personally, and I don't like Devin Achane, so that tells you something.
I think that's about where I'm at. Yeah, so I think short term Madison's gonna have okay value, but
yeah,
I do think they're because even though they quote unquote paid him to be the guy, they didn't really pay him.
Right.
It's a 2-year $7 million contract. Like that's, I mean, in running back terms, that's like gold. But that's beside the point.
Right now, that's about gold, so you can't complain too much for that.
It is, but I just don't think Minnesota necessarily believes he's the guy that. I mean, that's why they brought Dwayne McBride, because I think I can see McBride doing some of the.
Yeah, it was a 7th round pick. I don't hold it too much. But
I know he's going to take touches away.
Possibly. So, we don't know that for sure, but yeah, it's entirely possible. All right, so let's go to the receivers here. So that's our thoughts on the running backs. It's a little bit of a murky mess. Alexander Mattison, people love him, so if you have him, I'd probably sell him while you got peak value on it, personally. There's going to be weeks where he's going to be good, but I just, like Dale said, long term, I'd probably rather have Charbonnet or even Kendry Miller, personally. But, yeah, I could see moving on from him personally. Wide receiver wise, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborn, and then a bunch of guys right behind those guys. Jalen Reagor is probably the best name. Brandon Powell. There's nobody really behind those 3. KJ Osborn looked a lot better last year. I think that he's going to still be the 3rd guy. You're not really going to want to invest in him for fantasy. He did have 90 targets last year, 60 catches. Obvious 650 yards is not terrible. 5 touchdowns. It's not going to be. The problem is I don't think he's going to get 90 again with Jordan Addison on the team. Justin Jefferson is obviously the number one.
I think he will because for Adam Thielen had over 100 targets last year. So
I could see an uptick in Hockenson though.
But I don't think Hawkinson's going to get any more than he got last year. I think with Hockenson, that's more of his peak is what we saw last year. Like he got 129 targets.
He did, but some of I don't remember the exact stats when he switched, but once he switched over with the Lions, it was like 7-7, 4, 12, 4, 5, 4. Once he came over to Minnesota, it was a lot of targets. They were utilizing him a lot in the passing game. I think it was right around week 13, week 12.
No, it was around week 6. I'm trying to calculate.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was. It was
week 6 because he didn't play. Okay, so ramped up a couple of weeks there, but I mean, he had 6 targets in every game after that. I could see.
So in his games with Minnesota, like he had around 95 targets,
and I could see that going up. I could definitely see that going up. So I just think that I think Jordan Addison is going to eat up a lot of the space that Adam Thielen left, personally. KJ Osborn is fine, but he was wide receiver number 45 last year. Like, what's his realistic ceiling? I don't think he's going to get to wide receiver 2 status, right?
Right. No. I mean, I think if you play best ball, he's perfect.
Yeah, that's true. He's a good best ball target, for sure.
Yeah. He's a really good best ball target, and I think he's especially if there's any news on Jordan Addison, which I don't expect.
I don't either. Maybe a game, but it's just speeding is not. Speeding is not going to bring anything.
I don't think that. I mean, he's very fortunate it didn't turn into
a death. We had
a few years ago with
Henry Ruggs. Yeah.
He's extremely fortunate, but that's not the case, and we have to look at it as it is. So I can see him having to pay a fine and just moving on. And that's really going to be it. So I don't think there's going to be any suspension. But I do think it might hurt where his head is at in the beginning of the year. a little bit, and it
We'll
might
see.
take him a little bit longer. It could take him a little bit longer to acclimate.
Again, he didn't get arrested or anything, so I don't. It's just one speeding ticket, so I don't really want to blow it too much out of proportion. But yeah, I think Jordan Addison, he's probably in line in my book. Maybe because he's a rookie, you could see KJ Osborn eat a little bit of that up. But yeah, I think that Jordan Addison's going to get more valuable targets than KJ Osborn. Again, obviously, Justin Jefferson's the number one wide receiver. Some people have Jamar Chase as the number one. I still would probably take Justin Jefferson. I just think he's too good and too safe in a PPR league. Like, just give me the super high floor, and he has the ability to put up that super high ceiling as well. So, there's really not too much to talk about with Justin Jefferson. Quarterback, whoever it is, I don't care. He's going to be very good.
I think I would be worried if Kirk isn't his quarterback long term.
I'm not. I don't care.
I would be a little bit worried about his ceiling. That's the only thing.
We'll see.
I still think he's going to be a wide receiver 1, but I don't know if he'll have similar numbers to what he's had. I mean,
that's too much. That's too much future guessing. I think that
it is, but it is something to look out for, because they could very well change quarterback station.
They could, but they could also re-sign him. So it's like,
yes. So,
I'm not freaking out or anything.
I'm not freaking out until that happens. Right. I agree, but it's just something to monitor.
Yep. So Jordan Addison, late first right now in rookie drafts. I think that's perfectly fine. I think he has wide receiver 2, low end wide receiver 2 potential this year. More than likely, he'll probably finish as a 3 this year as a rookie, but I could see the path for him to being top 20 potentially, like low end, like 18 to 25, somewhere in that range potentially. KJ Osborn, there's our thoughts. Get him in best ball if you can. Otherwise, I just don't really. He could have some potential fill-in weeks as a flyer for a flex, but other than that, and then tight end wise, you got Johnny Munt, who's the blocker, Nick Muse, Josh Oliver, and then TJ Hockenson, who we mentioned a little bit before. TJ Hockenson was the tight end number 2 last year, 95 targets, and you said it was in week 6, so you had another 5 games onto that, and 129 targets. I think that's definitely doable again, and Kirk Cousins loves the tight end position. I know a lot of people are down on TJ Hockenson, which I don't really understand why.
I don't think he's going to replicate what he did last year. I think it was because, oddly enough, like Adam Thielen ran the most. I think it was the most routes in the NFL or something ridiculous last year. It was some crazy stat that I heard the other day, and I think there's better players coming in where they're not going to need Hockenson. I liked Adam Thielen last year, in general, but I think he's a decent player, but he's old. He's old and busted, and now they have new hotness in Addison, and they have KJ Osborn, who's a competent, wide receiver 3. So, and I think they might throw to the back a little bit more, all depending on what they got. So, I can see him having a high-end tight end 1 season, or a tight end 1 season, finishing, 5 or 6, but I don't necessarily think he's going to have the same success as last year, because I think some of those other tight ends are going to have better seasons.
We will see. I would bet against that personally. I think he's going to be top 3, just because of his experience in the league, because he's older, and he's probably the second. He's going to be the second best target for Kirk Cousins in this offense, just while Addison's kind of getting up to speed. Eventually, we all think that Addison can take the reins as the number 2, but I think it's going to be Hockenson pretty heavily for most of the season, and that's just going to be valuable for, again, we talked about the entire episode of, we think that they're going to pass a lot. We think that they're going to throw the ball a lot, and those targets had to go somewhere, right? And a bulk of them, right? And we love Justin Jefferson. We think that he's going to continue that. We even like KJ Osborn at about 90 targets. Jordan Addison about 90 targets. The running backs can get like 75 targets, and there's still probably 200 targets to go around. So that's why I think that TJ Hockenson could definitely continue that pace that he had last year, but We'll see. We will see. I could see the touchdowns coming up as well. He only had 3 touchdowns total with the Minnesota Vikings, and we know that Kirk Cousins likes the tight end in the red zone. So give him an offseason to get better, and I definitely think that you could see a little bit of an uptick in efficiency from Hockenson this year. So that's my 2 cents. Any last thoughts on the Vikings before we get out of here? All right, guys. So thank you guys for joining us. This was a little bit of a longer one, but there's a lot of good players here to talk about, and they're fun players. And I'm a little tired, so I'm off my game anyway. So it is what it is. But thank you guys for joining us here tonight. If you can, please like, comment, subscribe, do all the fun stuff. Help us out. I haven't said this in a while. Tell the podcast to one of your friends. We're just trying to grow. Get some more people out there. We've been growing pretty steadily on the YouTubes here the last couple of weeks, and we appreciate that. So again, anybody that's made it this far, we appreciate you guys. We're doing all this just to have a good time talking football, and also for some good information for you guys out there. So if you like it, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter at TDC_Calvin for myself, or Dale at Dynasty_Dale. And that's pretty much it. So thank you guys for joining us, and have a good night.